Hello, we are going to look at pedigrees today. It's the last real big thing that we'll do in our genetics unit before our big project. So let's look at this activity. Let me make this a little bit larger. All right, so in class, let's see here, let me get it back on the board. In class we're going to be doing this together. So I'm going to go through this. It's kind of like notes so that the next few days you'll understand how to do it based off of this. So the introduction is just a pedigree it's basically just a visual chart so that you can look back at parents, grandparents, great-grandparents, and you can try to see like diseases. Like, oh, is this disease run in our family? Where are the likelihood that I'm going to get this disease? Or if you have a disease, can you trace it back? Because a lot of times, a child will be born with something and the parents don't even realize, that they've had this, or that it's a recessive link and they were carrying it. They have no idea that they did that. So if we look at this chart right here, it's telling you that a circle represents a female. So anytime we see a circle in this chart, that is a female. The square is a male. Anytime you see a horizontal line, like here or here, those are marriages. They represent a marriage. So in this case, there are 3 marriages. Anytime you see the line that comes down like this represents children. These are the children. So this first couple had 3 children. This second couple here had 2 children, and this third couple had 3 children. Now there are 3 generations up here. We have generation 1, generation 2 on this line, and then generation 3 on that one. So just a little bit of information on how to read these things. Also, last thing, if you notice that if it's colored in, shaded in, that means that that gene is present, whatever it is we are looking at, whether it be a recessive or dominant, they'll let us know. On this one, the one thing I don't like about this packet is they don't do half shading. I always do half shading. So for instance, what I mean is like this child should be half shaded in because they got that from dad and they got the white side from mom. Alright, so anyways, that's the only thing. So you'll see me do some half shading on here if they're heterozygous. Alright, so the components of a pedigree, they're just going over the same thing that I told you. Squares are males, circles are females. We darken the shape if it is affected by the trait. That the line for marriage, a line drawn from the marriage indicates offspring. And it even says sometimes you'll see shapes filled in only halfway. That means they're hybrid or heterozygous. They carry the trait. What that means is that, say it's a recessive trait, this child would have it. This one would have to be heterozygous. We'll talk about how I know that later. But this mom could be capital T. But now if it's half filled in, it could be, or it's not could, it is heterozygous. It is that. So that's what we're getting at too, is being able to figure out the genetics based off of these pedigrees. All right. A pedigree is just like a family tree, except it focuses on a specific genetic trait. It's not all genetic traits. We pick one and we look at that. So it usually only shows the phenotypes of each family member, but when we start to think about these things, we can start to figure out the genotypes too, and that's going to be the big thing for today, is figuring out these genotypes. So hints for analyzing pedigrees. If the individual is homozygous recessive, remember homozygous recessive means, I'm going to use H's here, that would be homozygous recessive. Then both parents must have at least one recessive gene. So this is how I can figure out parents a lot of times. So if I have a mom and a dad, and let's say they have a son, and this son has this genetic disorder, whatever it is, 2 lowercase h's, it's a recessive genetic disorder. I know right away that, you get one of these from your mom, you get one gene from your mom, you get one from your dad. So dad had to have given a lowercase, so did mom. Now they're not completely filled in. So if they're normal, I know that has to be their genotype. So that's how I can figure out parents. Number 2 is pretty straightforward. If an individual shows the dominant trait, then at least one of the parents must have the dominant phenotype. It says that it will be pretty clear. So if I have this and I have a son, And even if there's one dominant trait, that means that one of these parents is normal. Now, I don't know about the other one, but at least one parent is. So that doesn't tell me a lot. Now, number 3, if both parents are homozygous recessive, this is kind of a given. If dad is homozygous recessive and so is mom, then every child on here, dad has to give a little t, mom can only give a little t. Doesn't matter how many children you have, dad, little t, mom, little t. They're all going to be recessive, homozygous recessive. All right, so let's get rid of that. Okay, so I also want to point out that the trait can be dominant or recessive. We're going to see a little bit of both. The majority of harmful genetic conditions are only seen when an individual is homozygous recessive. That makes sense. Like if it's very harmful, normally they're not going to live to produce offspring. And if they do, maybe they're not in good enough shape to reproduce. So most of these that are recessive, they tend to just pop up. You see carriers of the gene, and then all of a sudden they have a baby that has it. I've seen this happen just like within the last few years with somebody that I went to high school with. This happened. 2 individuals got together, didn't know that they carried a gene, and then gave it to their baby. Examples of these recessive conditions can be cystic fibrosis, and this is a disease of the secretory glands. Now people have died from cystic fibrosis, but we are coming a long way with genetic research and helping those individuals have a more normal lifestyle. But basically, they get a lot of mucus buildup, which causes them in their lungs, which causes them to then get some bacterial infections, and their lungs just get wore down so quickly. Let's see here, there's a blood disorder that can happen, albinism, just a lack of pigmentation. Now that's not going to kill you, so this one you might see more individuals have. There is some metabolic disorders, which just means how your body's functioning. The dominant ones that are expressed could be polydactyl, is actually a dominant gene. So could you imagine if that one really got into the human population and a lot of people started having many fingers, like more than 5 fingers. Achondroplasia, which is a type of dwarfism, is actually a dominant gene. So if somebody with that type of dwarfism ever has babies, they're going to be dwarfs. Neurofibromatosis is a nerve disorder. It's also dominant. And there's also a disease that affects cholesterol levels. It's a dominant. So once again, you look through your family trees. Looking at a family tree, you can sometimes guess as to whether it's going to be dominant or recessive anyway. So let's look at questions 1 through 9. A male, so which one's a male? A, B, C, or D? So if you said C, you are correct. Number 2, which one is the female? That is A. Which letter represents a marriage? And that is B. Which one of these is a person that expresses the trait? That would be A. Remember that they are filled in, you're colored in. A person who does not express the trait then would be C. A connection between parents and offspring, that is D. And then they ask how many generations are shown on this chart. So let's look. We've got, here's generation 1, generation 2, these are all siblings and their marriages. And then here's generation 3, all the grandkids. So there are 3 generations. I'm going to erase this stuff over there. Okay, so it says, assuming the chart above is tracing the dominant trait of white forelock. So that is a dominant trait through the family. Capital F is a tuft of white hair on the forehead. So if it is capital, they're saying that this is a dominant trait. That means everybody that is white, that is not filled in, is recessive, right? They're saying this is dominant, so anybody colored in has at least, I'm going to use T's here, has at least 1 capital. All of these have at least 1 capital because the capital means they have this trait. Everybody else is going to be recessive. And if you're recessive, you have to have 2 lower cases. So I'm going to go ahead and fill in all of these. I know it doesn't ask for that, but I'm going to, just to practice with you guys. All right, so now that I have this, I'm going to use those little kind of little bits of information up from above where they help me try to figure out what some of the parents are. So here's what I want to show you. I'm going to look at these 2 original parents. I'm going to look at their kids, right? So I'm like, okay, capital T, look, you get 1 letter from mom, you get 1 letter from dad, and dad can only give a lowercase t. So let's look through here. Here's another kid. Look, they got a lowercase t from dad. Guess what they got from mom? They got their other lowercase t. So you can see how I'm starting to use this to figure it out. Once again, this child got a capital T from mom, had to have gotten a lowercase t from dad. That's all dad can give. Now, so all the kids and their wives and everybody's figured out. Now let's look at the grandkids. Let's look at this grandkid right here, the first one. So we have a capital T got from mom. Dad had to give a lowercase t. That's all he had to give. Same over here with these kids right here. Look at mom. Mom could only give a lowercase t. So I have filled out, I've quickly figured out what, not only what phenotype they have, if they have this gene or not, but exactly what are their genes. Now the grandkids, I mean, if this were something serious, the grandkids may care and may want to know. So what is the most likely genotype of individual A? Well, let's look at individual A. We said that it's going to be a capital T, lowercase t. What is the most likely genotype of individual C? Well, individual C has to be lowercase t, lowercase t. That's all he can be. If you don't, in this case, if you don't have that disease, you are recessive. So that's all he could be. If he had a capital, he has the disease. All right, let's move on. Tracing the path for an autosomal recessive trait. Let's see here. This is Fanconi anemia. So this is the dominant form is normal bone marrow function. In other words, no anemia. So this is a recessive. All of this is recessive. So a typical pedigree for a family that carries Fanconi anemia. Note that carriers are not indicated with half-colored shapes. Now I do not like this, and you're going to see me half-color them in. All right. So I'm just going to right out to the side. So Fanconi anemia, that is the recessive. So once again, I'm using T's. You can use any letter. So if you have anemia, you're going to have 2 lowercase, because if you have capital, you're fine. And you can see where they even did that. They, 2 lowercase, they gave you a few of these. Fine. Capital F, not colored in. So here's what I'm going to do. All of these colored in, I'm going to go ahead and put the lowercase t's on them. I know they used F's, but I don't like using F's. I feel like my capital and my lowercase look too similar. All right, so now all of these others mean that they have at least 1 capital. That is why they're not colored in. I'm going to try to use their parents or their kids to figure out what they are. So let's look at George. For example, George. We got to look at his kids. We're going to try to use his kids to figure out what he could have given his kids. So let's look at Tom and Wilma, for example. They got a small t from their mother. Now they have another small t that they had to get from their dad. So in this instance, I would have half-colored this box in. All right, so let's look at, I'm going to go over here to the left-hand side. Let's look at Sandra. Okay, so do we know what Sandra has? Let's look at her kids. We know that Daniel is a capital lowercase, so once again, I would have half-filled him in. We know Alan has to be a lowercase. He had to have gotten that lowercase t from dad, so I'm going to half-fill him in. But Sandra, I don't know what her parents are, and her kids haven't told me anything else. Like if she would have had a son or daughter that was completely filled in, then I would know. But I'm really not for sure on Sandra, so I'm just going to put a line out to the side when I don't know. All right, let's look at, Sam, they already told us he's half filled in, right? Because he had that little t from mom. Same thing with Ann here. Little t had to come from mom, so this is how I do mine. I half fill it in. Now look, this is where it's different. Sandra, we couldn't figure out. Let's look at Ann and Michael. Can we figure out her husband? We don't know his family, but look at their daughter. 2 lowercase t's, got one from mom, had to have got the other one from dad. Now here's the thing, this is what happens when you have like a disease that's really bad, something that is really harmful to the child, is when you get 2 parents that are carriers and have no idea that they're carrying this. So that's what happened maybe in this case. And sometimes it can go like, it can be so rare that if you just happen to meet up and have a child with that one person that has that recessive gene and neither one of you know it. All right, Tina. So what we're looking at here, we don't know Tina's family history. So I don't know what she is. Now, if she had more children and some of them turned out to have this gene, then I would know. And Christopher, I don't know either because I don't know what Tina has. All right, so let's fill out the bottom then. What is Arlene's genotype? Well, we looked up there and we got little t, little t. What is George's genotype? Let's find George up here. George is the first male. So we figured out that he was a carrier. What is Ann and Michael's genotype? Well, both of them are big T, little t. Most likely, Sandra's genotype. So let's find Sandra. So it says most likely. Okay, so if I had to pick one, if I had to pick between capital T or capital T lowercase t, which one do I think it's going to be? Right now, just based off of 2 children, which is not a great way to do this, I'm going to bet that she is 2 capitals. If she were a capital T lowercase t, look at this. If this were my Punnett square, there's Dad. If she were this, then you have a, let me see here. I'm messing my Punnett square up, guys. Then you have a 50% chance that you're going to have a child that is affected by this. All right, and right now she doesn't. So I'm going to assume that she has 2 capital T's. That does not mean that's what she has. I still am not sure. That's just my best guess. All right, number 5 says list 3 people from the chart other than George who are most likely carriers. So other than George, let's look through here. We said Sam is a carrier. We said Ann is a carrier. And we know Michael is a carrier. Those for sure we know. We also know that Alan is a carrier. All right, so there's actually 4 up there other than George that we know for sure are carriers. And I've heard to fill this in. Like I said, I always fill them half in. All right, so let's move on to example 2. Now, example 2, I'm going to have them. I'm going to be like, okay, guys, let's see what you can do with this. I've done some with you. Now I want to see what you can come up with. And this is purely going to be during class time if they need help. It's going to be a participation grade because it's just getting you guys introduced into this, learning this. We will have a worksheet that's for a grade later on. But right now I'm going to be like, okay, you guys try to fill this in. Now I will go over this with them. What I would like is for you to show me what you come up with on this so I can check and see if you're right. So just kind of real quickly, it says the dominant form of neurofibromatosis caused by the production of abnormal form of the protein neurofibromin. Affected individuals show spots of an abnormal skin pigmentation and non-cancerous tumors that can interfere with the nervous system and cause blindness. Some tumors can convert to a cancerous form. The recessive form is normal. In other words, no. So here is what is crazy. All right, so if you are normal, then you are going to be this, and you're not no color. Now, if you have it, you can either be one of these 2 things. And you're going to be color purple. It'll be purple or that blue. I don't know if it's a blue or a purple color. Anyways, just kind of give you a heads up, like this is what you're going to be doing. Now I know they use ends. You can use ends too if you want. I guess I should have used ends since they already have an N up here. So if you want, you can change this to your normal is 2 lowercase n's. If you have it, you have capital N, lowercase n, or 2 capital N's. All right, so I want you to try this. I want you to try to answer these questions, and that's what they're going to do in class while we're in here. Now, if we have time in class, we are going to go over this case study. I'm going to go ahead and go over it with you. You can stop though, you can stop right now and you can come back to it tomorrow if you want, because it's going to take us about 2 days to get through this. So this is going to be us doing this ourselves. We're going to draw the pedigree, we're going to label the genotypes, and we're going to shade in the symbols. I'm going to half shade if they are carriers. And they did that on this one. You can see where they did right there. Alright, so normal melanin protein is produced by an autosomal dominant allele. Albinism is lack of melanin, and it is recessive. So just off to the side here, I'm going to write this. So albinism, they're using A's, so I'm going to continue using A's, and they're going to be colored in. Okay, normal is either going to be, it's going to be one of these two things, and they're going to be clear. Alright, so as I read through this, it says 2 normally pigmented parents. Okay, so I'm going to put a square, and I'm going to put a circle. Now they're normal, so they have at least one capital A. I don't know what the other one is yet. Well, I can, I'll do it here in a second. The first child, a girl, so that's a circle. Their second child, here's the first child, their second child, a boy, have normal pigmentation. So they have at least one capital A. Their third child, a girl, has albinism. And they have that one filled in here. That girl marries a normal pigmented male. So normally pigmented male. So we have at least one capital A. And they have 4 children. The first 3, 2 girls and a boy, 2 girls and a boy, have normal pigmentation, so at least one capital A. Their 4th child, a girl, has albinism. So she's colored in and has that. Now we have to go back and try to figure out what everybody's genotype is, like all of the ones.
Teachers, if you ordered food, it is downstairs.
Sorry about that. So we're going to go back and try to figure out these normal ones. Are they 2 capitals? Or are they a capital and lowercase? Are they carriers? So I'm going to start down here with the grandkids because sometimes it's easier to use them to figure out parents. So we got a lowercase a from mom. We had to have gotten that other one from dad. So I would have shade him in. Now it doesn't matter which side you shade in, just shading in half. So knowing that, look at this, mom, the only thing mom can give to each child is a lowercase a. Lowercase a. Alright, so let's go up here. Now, this daughter has 2 lowercase a's, which means she had to get one from each parent. So she got one from dad, and she got one from mom. So they are heterozygous, so I'm going to shade in half their circle and square. So knowing that, let's look. Now I know maybe dad gave me the capital A, but look, I could be this or I could be this. I would still be clear. I don't know. Until this person gets married and has children, maybe that would give me a little bit more insight into that, but I'm just not sure. And I'm not sure on this one either. Once again, if they were to get married and have children, then maybe I would be able to figure it out, and maybe not. I still might not be able to. But I definitely do not know for sure right now. There is a chance that they are carriers. We don't know. And that is where the problem lies. We don't know, and they don't know. So they might have to go and get some genetic testing done if this were something serious. Okay. All right, so then I'm going to have the kids. They're going to do one on Huntington's. Now, Huntington's is an allele, is caused by an autosomal dominant. So before I have the kids go off and start doing this, I'm going to tell them, hey, if you have Huntington's, you are either going to, they used H's, or big H, little h. If you are normal, that is little h, little h. Now remember, these would be the black circle and squares, these would be clear. And I'm going to have them read through that and try to complete this pedigree and tell me what they think. Now, once again, I would like for you to do this. Send me what you do. I can check and see how you did on that. All right. We are going to skip case study 3. We have not done blood types. Blood types are a little bit harder. We've not studied them. We've not talked about them. We didn't do any Punnett squares with them. I do them with my biology 2 class, my upperclassmen. So we're not going to do them in here. So I'm going to have them skip this page. And then I'm going to talk about this with them. And this says, look carefully at the pedigree drawn below and match it to one of the choices given. So is it recessive, autosomal recessive, which means it's on chromosome 1 through 22. Is it autosomal dominant? So if I'm looking at this right away, I'm like, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 10 have it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 6 don't. So right away that would tell me maybe it's dominant, but then it says an X sex-linked recessive. Is it sex-linked? Well, then I'm looking up here and I'm like, okay, well, how many boys have it? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 boys. And remember, an X sex-linked, it means girls can get it too. It's just boys are going to get it more often. 1, 2, 3 girls. Whew. So I would say, and after going through this, I would think that it would be sex-linked. I could see where somebody might say autosomal dominant, like maybe it just happens to be more boys have it. But as soon as I see more boys have it, I tend to think that it is sex-linked. Now, I almost feel like it's sex-linked dominant, although, I'm trying to see, although it's not, it cannot be sex-linked dominant because, remember, when we do sex-linked, it's on your X chromosome. Girls, the circle, a girl would have XX. So dad would have to give her, let's see, your dad would have to give her that. If it were dominant, dad would give her a capital H, right? Mom would give the lowercase, which would mean she would be colored in, but she's not. So it must be sex-linked recessive, is what I would think. Right, but it's just analyzing these, looking at it, analyzing it, what do you think? Okay, now then, what they are going to do finally at the end, and like I said, this has taken us 2 days, and I'm going to put that in the notes. We're going to do an extension where they are going to read this, and they are going to draw their own pedigree. So you're going to read this about hemophilia. Now, it is important to know that it is an X-linked disorder. So when you do this, when you're setting this up, if you're doing like, oh, my circle's off. Let me do a circle up here. If I have a circle and a square, this is XY, whereas this is XX. And then we're looking at what's on top of this. Only the X's. We're only caring about what's on the X's. I do not care about the Y, because the Y is not, the gene for hemophilia is not on Y, it's on X. All right, so I'm going to have them try this. I may even try to start them off with the first one. But there are 3 things in here that I'm looking for. I want to see how you did on this last one. And then there was one of these, this right here, that I want you to try to do. And then I want you to do this one also. So those are the 3 things really that you should at least, like I hope that you take the notes because you're going to get graded on that too. But you're also going to get a grade on that you tried to do those 3 things. All right, if you have any questions at all, let me know. This can be tricky for some students. Some students get it right away, but others it can be really tricky for. So let me know if you need any help at all. Have a great rest of your day. Bye.